very honored to have Michael Manrod here as our keynote speaker. He's the Chief Information Security Officer from Grand Canyon Education. During COVID, he did a lot of virtual stuff with us, and I'm super excited to have him here in person. He sat on our panel last year, so I'd like to thank him for being such a great supporter to FutureCon. Mike presently, as I said, serves as the Chief Information Security Officer for Grand Canyon Education. He's responsible for leading the security team and formulating the vision and strategy for protecting students, staff, and information assets across the enterprise. Previous experience included serving as threat protection expert for Checkpoint and working as a consultant and analyst for other organizations. He's also the co-author contributor for the joint book project, Understanding New Security Threats, published by Routledge in 2019, along with other multiple articles. When he's not working, he spends time playing video games, imagine that, and with his kids and practicing martial arts and lots of outdoor activities. I love his topic today. He's going to speak on I tricked AI and I liked it. So let's welcome Michael to the podium.
Thank you, everybody. And an extra round of applause to Kim, the FutureCon team, and everybody serving our food, cooking these great meals and making sure that all this happens seamlessly. So it's always exciting. We've got a fun topic to talk about today. Before we get into it, I will say, since two of my BFFs from the martial arts side are here, that part of my bio is a little out of date. I'm not super active in that lately, so... I'm getting invitations. If you see me taking falls or getting thrown around on the brakes, I'm not in trouble. It's welcome, and it's our love language with my friends Mike and Kyle in the room. I'd also like to thank Christian Talon, who is actually out on leave due to the wonderful cause of having a baby. He and his wife Alexis, their new daughter Brooklyn. They're really excited, but obviously, he couldn't be here, or he'd be co-presenting this with me because we did a lot of this research together. But also, Matt Clark, Isaac Artsy, Nathan Harris, Cameron Kaunak, Ezra Woods, and just so many other people I've conversed with on these topics. It's been a journey of exploration, along the way. So, obviously, what is Grand Canyon University? Grand Canyon Education. I have two jobs. I work for both, faculty for one and security for the other. But obviously, who's into basketball? Like, we had a big basketball game last night. I was really sad about the Diamondbacks, but I was really happy that GCU basketball just crushed it. So it really kind of balanced out my morning of the Diamondbacks. But heck, how many Diamondbacks fans are there in the room? Any Diamondback fans? All right. It's cool that they made it. Maybe next year. But we focus a lot on cyber education, have cyber classes. Some of our faculty are here in the room. And, we have a cyber center of excellence, a warfare range. Pretty much we're just about researching and doing cool stuff and teaching people from a cyber perspective. The foundations of this research is just, it started with there was a lot of noise on the topic. I don't know how many of you have done this, but like last RSA, I didn't go to RSA, but my contribution was a buzzword bingo card, and I think at least half of those buzzwords were AI related in some way, shape, or form. So lots of noise. There's a lot of churn on the topic. There's a lot of aspects of it that are nebulous. And so basically, there's some thought experiments we're going to look at. There's some actual experiments. And then because I'm glutton for punishment, we have a live demo. So you may see me tab back and forth occasionally to make sure our RDP session didn't drop there. But a lot of this was summarized also in depth. If you want to go deeper on this topic, Christian and I co-authored an article that was recently published in Solutions Review, and the QR code to that article is right here. And then, of course, I changed the slide faster than anybody can grab the QR code. I promise that's not a Rickroll this time. Usually it is, Anybody in the room do security awareness or teach social engineering classes or anything like that? I always like to put up a QR code of a Rickroll at least once in that class, just to make it fun. But we're going to look at some basics of framing the problem, understanding the problem at a basic level, and boiling it down to, hey, what are the actionable things we need to think of as technologists, as security professionals? You know, what are the fundamental simplified issues? Because addressing this does not have to be complicated. We're going to look at, we're going to talk for just real briefly about good and bad prompts, and a little bit about prompt engineering. And then the fun part is we're going to look at a little bit of experimentation with adversary use of AI, looking at ChatGPT, Google Bard, and then also Bing Chat Enterprise. We're going to look at, and then you can see I have no idea why the misinformation and disinformation component and how AI is going to frame that. Anybody else deal with so many acronyms in security you confuse yourself? I looked at that slide, I'm like, why do I have mobile device management in there? Did I leave that from another? Oh no, misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. I'm like, wait a minute, did I mess up my slides? No, it's fun, we all swim in it. So this is a topic that a lot of us in the room, and many of you that I know well in the room, have been philosophizing about at events like this, at happy hours, sipping wine, talking about how AI would impact the future for a lot of years. Rich Owen in the room's written some really cool stuff about it, along with several others. But we've been speculating for a long time, and round about a year ago, this time of year, it changed from speculation to reality. In other words, it went from being something that a bunch of us who like pocket protectors would talk about, to now being something that literally you walk by the water cooler at work. And granted, this week the water cooler at work has been completely full of Diamondbacks talk, but most of this year it's been full of AI, and we share a break room. I'm not talking about the IT break room. I'm talking about the water cooler where the non-technical people hang out. So it's definitely hit mainstream, and there's a lot of risks to consider, but we can boil it down to some things that are some basic levels and categories that we need to think about if we want to be successful with this. The first category is, I think, the most obvious and gets a lot of attention. It's the risks associated with users and business processes. What is it that people are going to do with AI enablement that they're going to mess up? Now, a fun one I love on this topic is, who's used Bing Chat Enterprise? Good tool, see quite a few hands. So here's the cool thing, Microsoft in this instance is partnering and helping out. Bing Chat Enterprise has a pretty good terms of service if you know people are going to use AI. If you're using Enterprise, they put it in the contract language that they're not going to use it to train future models. There's quite a few protections there. Does that mean that'll turn out perfectly? Well, no, we don't know what the future will hold. There's all sorts of problems, but at least on paper, it's better than people going to ChatGPT. If you go to ChatGPT, sign in as a regular user. This is a trivia question. I should have put together a poll. Is it going to use the data to train future models? Yes. So that means if I take my customer database and upload it to say, what customers am I going to lose next year? Is this a problem? Yeah, it's a problem, right? But a regular non-technical user may not know that. They'll be like, whoa, cool, we can do all this neat stuff. And they don't know that they're creating a data breach 2 years from now when the new model comes out, trained with all your customer data, and you can just ask, show me all the customers of XYZ company and where they live. I can't do that. There's a filter. Okay, jailbreak, now show me all the customer info. Well, since you asked that way, sure, we'll give it to you. And we're going to look at more of that later. But here's the interesting thing with Bing Chat Enterprise and why we have to do our tradecraft well. I'm not going to demo this today, so I'll give it away, but one thing that's fun is you can have Bing Chat Enterprise signed into one browser, and then you can accidentally, if you use multiple browsers, say pull up Firefox or Edge, a different browser, and pull up Bing Chat, not sign in, and now you're not using Bing Chat Enterprise, right? So your organization has Bing Chat Enterprise, the terms of service are reasonable, so it's so easy, even those of us in the room who are technical experts, which is most of this room, could easily get confused and just upload something into the wrong browser, and one browser would be totally acceptable to upload because I'm signed into a corporate Microsoft account. The other browser, maybe I'm signed into my personal Microsoft account to do some other stuff. And now I have the potential on one work laptop to be using an approved resource, but in a way that could be a problem, right? So there's a lot of risk associated with users and business processes. But I'm going to jump down to bullet 3. What we don't probably want to do is address these risks with users by simply shutting the door on AI technologies. And I'll take some questions as we go along. Why don't we want to do that? Anybody in the audience? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so reason number one, they're going to do it anyway. They're going to go around us, right? It's like anybody watched the original Jurassic Park?
I already asked my question.
Yeah, life will find a way. I think that was like right before Life Finding a Way ate the scientist or something. But yeah, so that's one reason. What's another? You limit innovation. If we have organization A that takes a stance of we're going to do zero AI, we're going to block it everywhere, we're going to just manage this perfectly. I'll have no AI breaches in the year 2024, no chance of it. And then organization B maybe even makes mistakes, runs with scissors, they get cut, they get sutured, they have a couple of visits to urgent care. But by 2027, organization A might be very diminished in importance, and they might be shrinking in market share, where organization B might have even had a data breach, some problems, some bad things happen, but they're the dominant player because they actually adapted. So we have to remember when we're coming up with AI policy that failing to adapt is a very legit risk here. Doing it badly or allowing business users to do it the wrong way is also a legit risk. And if we don't provide a pathway to do things correctly, life will find a way, people will do it incorrectly. My favorite part, not because it's the most important thing to explore, but just because it's fun to play around with, is how adversaries are empowered by these new technologies. So, show of hands, I'm going to do a little poll here informally. How many of you think that AI will be most effective at helping the top tier adversaries? Few, and it will, I agree with those who raise their hand. It's a trick question. It will probably help the top tier adversaries. Who thinks it's going to be most effective at helping the bottom tier adversaries to level up, right? Like is Quackbot, Emotet, DarkSide, Darkgate, are these actors, the access brokers, ransomware as a service providers, will AI be revolutionary for them? Yeah, maybe not. Maybe to the same degree it is for us in defending. They're going to get personal productivity gains in their dev shops just like we are. But if you're kind of like at the lower end of script kiddie territory, or you're running a fraud ring that's non-technical and you want to make that into a low-level technical foe, there's an opportunity to bring new players. Everybody's heard of Lapsus, obviously. Lapsus is a great example of an adversary that brings the lesson home to us of don't take new entrants and poorly organized adversaries that we'd underestimate. We've got to take them seriously. Because if we feed the lower end of the funnel with lots of really bad lower end adversaries that aren't very good, natural selection will take over, and one or two of those will actually become really good, and it'll level up through the process, and 3 years from now, we will have new adversaries we don't have today that were like the lowest end of the fraud spectrum that actually are ransoming companies and doing serious things. So it's obviously empowering the adversaries. And then I got to give a shout out to Isaac Artsy, one of our faculty members on AI and computer sciences at GCU for this. But he's constantly harping, like, we have to be careful trusting the results, right? We've all seen phantom results, hallucinations. Christian couldn't be here, but one of his favorite sayings I love to quote is, for years, we've been trying to find computing devices that aren't totally bound by conventional math. Well, with generative AI, we've finally created a computer that can't do math well. Like, sometimes it'll give you the right result, sometimes it won't. And Christian has a whole conference talk series and series he does on how you can get your generative AI to fail at doing math. So we have to know when to trust the results, when not to. And probably, even if we're doing everything right from a security and governance perspective, we have to realize that these systems are not intelligent and aware in the sense that we are. They seem aware. Sometimes with their answers, they're smarter than we are, but they are not sentient, and they don't necessarily check their math. So we've got to keep that in mind. So obviously, what's practical? Like, what do we need to take back to our IT governance right away? Like, we've got to deal with users uploading sensitive data. And I've got some slides that I welcome anybody here or anybody who sees this online later to steal, use, borrow, that are just like, I like to make it fun for end users of how to have this conversation about what's a good prompt, what's a bad prompt. One of those that frequently gets overlooked is uploading source code to say ChatGPT to fix your source code. Is that a good use of generative AI? Another trick question. Yeah, I think it's a great use of generative AI. Like, I use ChatGPT to debug things all the time, or like, why am I getting this stupid error? And they'll give good answers sometimes, or often they won't fix it, but they'll send me on the right track to figure it out myself. But we all know we shouldn't have hard-coded secrets in our source code, but do we? Yes, we all, like, there's probably at least 4 vendor booths just dedicated to that. Their existence is proof of the fact that we all mess that up. And even when we think we're doing it right, we find instances all the time where we're messing it up. Here's a fun one that I was actually talking about with one of my classes last night. Who's seen examples of weaponized, Trojanized, seemingly legit, highly functional ChatGPT or AI apps in Amazon and Android marketplaces? Like, they're all over. Maybe seen an article, a dark reading, or Hacker News post about it. They're all over. Why is that so easy to create those? Here's a fun experiment. Daniel Schuler and I love Niantic Labs games. Like, we've played Ingress together for like 10 years. More commonly, you all are probably familiar with Pokemon Go. My kids got me going with that recently. If I wanted, like, if we were an adversary group and we were going to like wreak havoc, and the group of minds in this room, I'm like, hey, we got to get a new threat out there. We're behind on infecting hosts. We gotta boost our production numbers. What I want you to do is create an app that rivals Pokemon Go to steal their business so we can Trojanize it. How difficult or easy is that going to be? Crazy difficult, right? Like, I mean, Niantic Labs has a decade of evolution and probably billions of dollars into the evolution of what makes those apps possible. If you're curious about the evolution of GIS information systems, a book I strongly recommend is Never Lost Again, kind of the story of how Keyhole became Google Maps, which spun off to become Niantic Labs. A really, really cool book. Nothing to do with what we're talking about today directly, but pretty fun. Now, let's say we have this same group of us. I'm like, hey, by end of day, with the people in this room, we need a Trojanized, fully functional ChatGPT app for the Android marketplace. What's our confidence level we could do that by close of business with the people in the room? 100%. I'd bet all the money on all those wheel spins everybody is going to get today that we could be 100% successful with that by end of day. And the reason is because OpenAI and other services have wonderful APIs. So you take a front end that's easy to put together, users will be convinced because the app's going to work great. It's going to give the exact same answers that ChatGPT through the OpenAI interface gives because it's using the same API. So users download it, they don't suspect a thing. No, this isn't a compromised app. It's not a bad app. Look, it just told me how to make the perfect martini. It can't be bad. So naturally, this is being used from adversaries mimicking something highly desirable, easy to recreate, functional but bad, and getting bad things out there. And obviously, Marvin from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy has his thoughts in that meme. I'll wait to comment on that till later. So again, this is super simplified, but what do we need to do for general corporate safety tips? Only used, approved, safe, mainstream products. That's, I think, one of the main things. So again, if you are going to integrate an API, if you're going to use ChatGPT, using even the API directly or via the Azure marketplace, or there's probably other marketplaces that do the same thing, will provide very different terms of service than if you just go type stuff in. When you look at things like applications like Salesforce, Dynamics are providing their own approved, certified versions of API tools that are probably appropriate to have access to that data. Just make sure that the data you upload today is not training the model of tomorrow unless you want it to be. Like if I'm asking about tips to make the perfect martini, I actually don't care if that trains tomorrow's model. I'm all about the future of good AI. But we really have to think ahead about this. Go ahead.
Access control. So making sure that the right people have the right access at the right times to be able to actually manipulate the LLMs internally, because that's a huge risk as well, even though it's reducing the risk, reducing the attack surface.
Yeah, the right people having right access. And then one thing I'm making as a recommendation, I think a lot of people will contradict this, but it's my opinion, so I'll put it out there. Don't have LLMs, whether local LLMs or cloud services, that span across trust levels. Because I don't think we're going to get rid of jailbreaks and prompt engineering at any point in the next decade. It'll be a cat and mouse game, but it'll be a cat and mouse game that goes well into the future. So if you want an AI to answer questions unauthenticated about things that are just freely available in your website, great, you can do that. If you want to use Copilot or whatever your enterprise software equivalent is to interact with your sensitive data, great, do that. But keep them separated. And no, I won't break into song there. But you want to keep those trust levels separated so that if somebody jailbreaks the app that's unauthenticated from your front-end website, they may be able to get some funny responses. They may be able to manipulate it, but they're not getting your customer database because that is a completely different system and model with no touch points. Like if you just identify your AIs into different trust levels, you'll go a long ways and it will save you a lot of headaches. Even if you make some mistakes and get some skinned knees, there'll be a smaller blast radius. There'll be a smaller level of failure. And I've had to say no to requests that broke that rule literally within the past 24 hours. I'm like, no, you can't do that. You can do all those things separately, but you can't do it in that one platform. So some safe and unsafe prompts. One of these I already used. Tell me how to make the perfect margarita. That's definitely definitely the kind of prompt that you can ask of just ChatGPT or Bing Chat, non-commercial, or Google Bard. In fact, what I recommend is ask how to make the perfect margarita of each of the three. Make those margaritas, take tasting notes, and at the end, you really won't care which one's best if you drink all three fast enough. On our team, as David and the crowd will attest, on our team, we're constantly talking about how the best beverage is clearly tea and not coffee. So, you can write poems to needle your coworkers about such things. That doesn't need to be a well-secured or private GPT. That can just be ChatGPT through a regular user account. Even more serious stuff, like what are the top 10 traits of successful people in tech or in this new field I want to move into? Rich and I were talking about this. Maybe the new field I want to move into is retirement, but let's see, lounging on beaches, RVs, no. But these are examples of good prompts. Examples of bad prompts would be correct this sample of unredacted code pasted with hard-coded secrets. Or maybe it's the source code to an application that your company just spent $100 million developing and you uploaded the entire source code. You may have even done your secrets management right, but maybe you don't want to do that. Based upon the data that was provided below or attached, predict what customer will drop in the next 2 weeks. Is that a great AI use case? Absolutely it is. But you have to be very careful that you have properly certified, validated, segmented, tested, and that your contracts and agreements all support that level of use. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for future pain. And then same with revenue predictions, publicly traded companies. Don't just go upload your actual data for your SOX, SOX data to predict revenue. You're going to have all sorts of levels of violations and problems unless you're in an appropriately controlled system certified for that data. All right, so that's the boring part. Now we're going to get into the fun part, which, all the stuff we're supposed to do, right? Now we get to get into the fun part, which is the stuff we're not supposed to do, which is, weaponizing prompts. Who in the room's played with some jailbreaks and prompt engineering to weaponize some stuff? Yeah, definitely a few folks, and some of you in the room I've actually talked with and collaborated on it. But I recommend everybody play with it at least a little bit, and I think I have a QR code for this later. I'll check again, make sure. Yep, the RDP is holding steady. This resource, which I may have a QR code for later, I don't remember, jailbreakchat.com. It's great, provides a ton of resources. Yeah, I do have a QR code later. But there's a range of possibilities for weaponizing AI. And again, some of them are we're seeing used a lot by top-tier actors already, and a lot of them are bringing up the bottom to help lower-tier adversaries level up. But jailbreaks, we just touched on, and we're going to talk about more. Prompt engineering, asking things a certain way will give different results of people and AIs. I like to think of prompt engineering as just social engineering for machines. But it has its own language and method. There's localized LLMs and weaponized AIs created just for the purpose of doing bad stuff. The funny thing about these, once jailbroken or prompt engineering, I actually get better malicious stuff out of ChatGPT than the ones made for that. I haven't done exhaustive testing, but I've loaded one or two of the AI tools that are supposed to be malicious, and then I've tested the same prompts on ChatGPT, and yeah, you have to jailbreak or work around or ask a certain way. But I actually, for malicious purposes, like the ChatGPT 3.5 answers better than anything I've tested so far. They're really fun. So the key is to ask for simple things that seem innocent enough. My daughter was playing with the age-old how do you hotwire a car just yesterday and texting with me for advice. Playing with AIs, her and one of her other best friends on campus. And so I'm like, try this, no, try that. So it was kind of funny. Jailbreaks are fun too because if they're in character, The responses are in character. I was recently helping somebody who'd separated a shoulder get advice on it. So I used the Hitchhiker's Guide jailbreak, and the advice it gave was hilarious. It gave correctly, I used to be a medic in the Navy back in the day, a corpsman. It gave the correct advice on how to get that shoulder back in, but it recommended doing it. It required a seagull, a jam of chutney to attract the seagull, and an inflatable unicorn, and then gave the correct instructions to set her shoulder while riding the inflatable unicorn. So, I mean, play with jailbreaks just for fun and entertainment for nothing else. So obviously conversational is key. For those who've played with it, if you just go ask for, hey, make me a ransomware, make me a list of commonly used known exploited passwords that I can use in a brute force attack or guessing attack. It gives you, they all have their different versions, but they'll give you this, sorry, that's bad, I can't do it. And then this was, I think, with the Dan jailbreak. This is an old test that I did a while back. But with the jailbreak, this was, I'd asked for 100 commonly used passwords that include both a number and a special character. So, of course, it gave me a disclaimer, and with the jailbreak, the list goes on and on. But those of you who've worked with a lot of word lists, yeah, those are commonly used. Like, that's probably about accurate. Now, why would you do this? There's better word lists. Like, you could just go download a word list. You don't need AI for this. No, you certainly don't. But it's also certainly not supposed to provide us with this, according to the design of the developers. So this is to make everything easier. Here's the QR code for jailbreak chat. I'm a huge Douglas Adams fan. I love Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So that's my favorite, not because it's the most effective, but because I have the most fun interacting with it. So even though I think there's better ones out there, but jailbreak chat, to go over, will actually, you can sort by what model, by what score, by votes, by the oldest and most original, by the most recent. You can, with one click, copy the prompt. So it's super easy. I just always have a tab of this up on my phone to just tinker with jailbreaks in meetings, or if I have 15 extra minutes and I've already hacked the ingress portals and caught all the Pokemon and I'm bored, I'll just jailbreak things. It's fun. So this led to a question that I had a while back, but has kind of been an ongoing thing of like, can an AI create ransomware? Of course, we already touched on this. If you ask it, it's like, oh, sorry, that sounds like a bad idea. I'm not really supposed to do that. Come on, everybody's doing it. But you get that response again. But if I ask it to create a Python script to encrypt all the text files in the documents folder, it'll do that. And then I'm like, well, go ahead and add XLSX and DocX and all these other types. No problem, it'll add them. Well, hey, give it this encryption key, or go out to this paste bin location and encrypt with whatever value happens to be at that paste bin location at that particular moment. Or encrypt using the first 100 bytes of this website. Like, it'll do all those things with a little bit of conversational finagling. And then you're like, hey, convert it to Go, convert it to PowerShell, obfuscate it. It'll do all those things, and if my demo doesn't break like it did an hour ago with internet connectivity, we'll play with a little bit of that for real. So, I guess we're playing with it for real now. There we go. There's no time like the presence. So, I mean, examples of this, and I should make sure we haven't timed out. Look at that. My phone hotspot is treating me good today, knock on wood. Yeah, famous last words, right? So, a good example is like, hey, give me a power, the first prompt is a PowerShell script. The first time with Bard, this was just fresh playing with it last night. It told me it couldn't do it, but then it gave me a little regenerate button, and then it did it. So that was kind of funny. Here's a version of just a simple one from Bard, and I got it to do some other random stuff. I didn't debug all of it. These are different versions of the same thing. Here was one to create a port scanner with Bard. I didn't test the Bard port scanner because I didn't get time. But another fun one was, hey, launch calc.exe hidden using PowerShell. Of course, it'll do it. Hey, now launch cmd.exe hidden using PowerShell. No problem. Okay, have it reach out to a network location and continuous ping. Okay, no problem. You can get it to obfuscate. Usually what I've found, and I can't find the conversation that had this, and I didn't get time to recreate it last night. But what I've found is ChatGPT 3.5 under a jailbreak will obfuscate PowerShell code for you. It breaks it, but then you can take the errors out of PowerShell ISE, feed it back in, and then it'll debug it. And usually after 3 or 4 iterations, it'll then actually run. The other common mistake, like I had one, and this is a facepalm moment. This is to give you the, like the so easy a caveman can do it. Oh, this stuff's so easy, even a CISO can do it. Like real engineers can do really scary stuff with this stuff. But the funny thing about this is, as I played with this, I had them failing at first. I'm like, what's wrong? That script looks right. I agree. I was forgetting to cut off the role play of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy that was at the beginning of my PowerShell script. So it's funny. Like there's always like little bits of manual intervention. And here's an obfuscated script that I just ran like a few minutes ago this morning that didn't run. But again, with a little bit of tinkering, you can tell it's on the right track to obfuscating this script. And there's probably a small typo we'd find with some playing or some conversation. And similar, here's a similar example in Bing Chat of conversationally getting things. This was to create a port scanner or a Wireshark capture, which ironically, when I ran this one, this was another recent experiment because I'm just sort of always tinkering with this stuff. It did the packet capture, it returned errors, but it was capturing packets. So it sort of halfway worked. So what does this look like if we play with some of the examples of this? So this one is a port scanner that it created using PowerShell, not obfuscated. Unfortunately, I lost the one I'd obfuscated, and I didn't get time to re-debug it. So you can see it's kicking up the network adapter, and it's going to, here in a moment. The only thing I changed on this script from what was default, other than I think I did remove the Hitchhiker's Guide dialogue at the beginning of this one, is it defaulted to the first 1,000 ports, which is terrible for demos because then it's going to be scanning for a while. So I just picked commonly attacked ports like the usual suspects here that you can see on screen: 8443, 3389, NetBIOS, SMB, all the usual stuff. And you can see that this VM, actually I forgot SMB on this edit of it, but you can see this had 135, 139, 3389, and if I wouldn't have forgotten to type it manually in there, it would have gotten SMB too on this particular lab VM. Another fun one is like our, hey, let's spawn a command prompt hidden and start a continuous ping. Again, you could do other things with the continuous ping. This was just easy to demonstrate. If we play that, we can see over here, no command prompt popped up, but under Task Manager, we see that new CMD process just spawned. So you can begin, like a fun line of work would be to take like alt lulbas or lulbins that live off the LAN framework, and because these are being created newly, they won't be an exact match for the script that's in the lulbas project. It'll be a little bit different, but do the same thing. And then if you obfuscate it, it's probably going to get by a lot of stuff, right? So these are just examples of a couple fun use cases. And then this one was a run as administrator version that launched it with administrator privileges on the host. Of course, you have to be missing some security products, or you have to have some errors for this to run. It's a lab VM. Hopefully on our enterprise systems, some of these things wouldn't work exactly this way, but it kind of gives you the rough idea of the potential of how you could probably recreate the entirety of LOLBAS newly in like a few days' work using this, and then obfuscate it with a few more days' work, and then anything signature-based looking for those exact things would probably run into at least some difficulty detecting it compared with what we usually do. I don't remember if, I think that was one of the broken ones I hadn't debugged fully yet, so we'll skip that one. But any questions there before we move on? We'll do, because I know we're covering a few different building topics. Definitely fun stuff to run home and play with. So I find that ChatGPT 3.5 via OpenAI with either jailbreaks or careful prompt engineering seems to give me the best malware or malicious component. Oh, that's right, I forgot the cool demo. I was like, wait, I was supposed to do something else. So the other one was the file encryptor portion of a ransomware. So we've got these mic test files here that are just data, data, data. We're going to run this with PowerShell. And now you can see it dropped an encryption key, but of course we'd have that existing somewhere else or drop it to a C2 location. And you can see these are now all AES encrypted. So again, it's a ChatGPT created ransomware encryptor module that's live off the land in nature via PowerShell. And that one didn't require any debugging. It was literally just, it just worked. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I've done a lot with GPT-4 and it works, but I think they've improved the filtering a little bit with GPT-4, so it actually stops more of what I want to do, which is a good thing. As a defender by day, I prefer that. Like, that's good. But when I'm messing with things and trying to cause trouble, I use ChatGPT 3.5 because it filters less. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, yeah.
So this isn't directly about what you're talking about right now, but you are kind of alluding to it. What are some thoughts that you have about like protecting against poisoning the model? Because it sounds like what you're kind of doing, possibly inadvertently, is poisoning the model by like introducing bad information, which as companies start to implement these as workflows, that ingestion of bad information is super concerning. Maybe more so even than like malware.
Yeah, it actually is. And I was remiss. I should have a bullet on my slide for that because I didn't. Like, I kind of put it on trusting the results bullet, but you're right. Poisoning models is another problem, right? And like using a brute force or bot-driven methodology, you could engineer responses to poison the model of a public model like ChatGPT so that they're giving biased responses. An area of research that I'd encourage somebody to do and maybe give next year's equivalent talk at FutureCon on is, you know, what could you do to poison the model in a particular direction or a particular bias? And like what creative ways could you weaponize that? I think that's an area for more exploration. That's a great question. So in case we had a demo file, I put a QR code to like a YouTube video that had like some less cool demos, but since our demo didn't fail. Like Cura.ai put on a great prompt engineering trainer called Gandalf, and again, it's role-played Gandalf theme, and it starts with, there's a password you're supposed to give it to get it to give you, and it moves through progressing stages of difficulty, gamified, to give you, where you work harder and harder to get it to give you the password, and it teaches you the basics of prompt engineering. So super fun resource. I wanted to put that out there. Pivoting topics a bit, my friend Deb Radcliffe, who commented online, but she lives in Hawaii. We should all feel bad for her, right? So she couldn't be here for obvious reasons. She has other stuff going on out there, but she's written a lot of great articles talking about the practical use of deepfakes. So we all saw what we're branding as a shallow fake, where AI technologies were used on the generative visual space to have President Zelensky tell citizens of Ukraine to throw down their arms. So this is historical and a first in the world, even though it wasn't very good for a few reasons. It's a kinetic warfare event, a physical invasion, combined with a cyber attack. They took over a news studio to compromise their feeds, combined with a deep fake on the MDM of a nation-state leader telling people to do something to achieve a military objective. So that's kind of frightening in its own mind, in its own might. And for those of you I've been talking with this about this topic for years, recall, like, this is the stuff we've been afraid of and talking about all the time, and it happened. Now, if any of you watched the video pictured there, it's terrible. Hence why we're calling it a shallow fake. I'm just glad that the Russian adversaries who did this didn't hire Disney, because if they would have hired Disney, the whole outcome might have been completely different. We all believed Mark Hamill suddenly becoming young again, but luckily this Russian attempt was pretty solid on the cyber side, but pretty weak on the deepfake side. But the technology's actually improved dramatically since this event. What was it, a year and a half ago, it looks like. But it's significant. But Deb Radcliffe commented on what we're thinking about it. I've always been thinking about what happens when a nation state leader's impersonated. What happens when you combine business email compromise with deep fakes, with people who are public, like people who do earnings calls or people in corporate officer roles, or those of us goofy enough to put ourselves on YouTube all the time doing stuff like this. Obviously, I'd probably be pretty easy to impersonate. But what happens when you combine a deep fake with the fact that you took their voice from earnings calls of, say, a CFO, you compromise their inbox. Now you're looking at their meeting invites. So you see that they're always at a reoccurring accounting and finance meeting, but then they're on vacation that day, so they're not going to be there. You have a little bit of dwell time. You show up to that meeting as them with a video of them with their voice, their face, and order somebody to make a wire transfer. Our accounting teams, all of them, have gotten really used to bogus emails asking for stupid wire transfers. But when it's your CFO with their voice, their face, telling you to do it, it's going to be a whole different ballgame, because like any of us could fall for that if it was pulled off at the right level of quality. So we're going to see a next level fraud here. It's not just about nation states. This is going to hit us in our own IT and corporate teams. Lastly, we'll do a little bit of Q&A, but my friend Matt Clark and I made this video. AI didn't write the lyrics. The lyrics were a result of just goofing around on Teams chat late at night. I wish I would have had AI write the lyrics. It probably would have done better. But we were playing with generative AI to make rap music for lyrics I'd already come up with that night. So Matt Clark did the heavy lifting of that piece, but this is an AI rap of adversary activity with AI. There's a snake reference. That's what happens when you're chatting late at night. I had my son and I had seen a coral snake versus king snake, and we were debating that on a hike. So we'll roll this now, and then we'll take any remaining questions. It helps if I turn up my sound. Looks like I'll pause our sound. Looks like we're not. So it's good. We got through the demo, the important demo stuff without a demo fail. But it's always the easy stuff that gets us, right? Sound, output. Yep, it doesn't like that. So you'll have to, we'll have to provide the AI-generated wrap some other method, some other time. Yeah, that's a great idea. I can't. Yeah, there we go. That's In fact, I think I even know where on my laptop to hold this thing to get the best sound. I was going to say, because it would have been way better in your imaginations than it really will be. So now I think I shouldn't play it, but here we go. I'm not sure this one is on.
To move from host to host, spitting their venom where it exploits the most. You see that get injected in
Here we go. Now,
they slither like a lateral move. Poor scams, recon they are in the grove. Adversaries, they like to move from host to host, spitting their venom where it exploits the most. You see that get injected attacks about every day. All of my friends are asking, are you okay? Sometimes I live on snake, but the times it's cold. I just like to call it death alarm mode.
there's more verses, but I think we got the general idea. All right, thanks everybody. What questions do you all have? Yeah, go ahead. Nope. Oh yeah, got to pass around the mics.
It's more of a business question for a CISO related to this. I understand uploading intellectual property, all that stuff, I get all that, but as an educational center, I'm sure you use a lot of AI internally at your company.
Yep.
Say you get compromised, they use that internally at your company. How do you see this playing out over the next year with cyber insurance policies?
It's a good question. So we've seen the evolution cycle of cyber insurance respond to ransomware as a service already. It looks like Rich has a question over there too, next. And what we saw is first they used to ask us these really dumb 15 questions that meant nothing. Then they tripled to quadrupled insurance rates, denied half the coverage for anything that wasn't perfect, and asked like a ton of questions. But then they were able to correlate that data, and actually now rates are coming down if you have a good program, and the questions are actually intelligent and make sense. So I would imagine if AI starts generating new risk, we'll see the same cycle. There will be panic, rates will shoot up, there will be too many questions and they won't make sense. Then it'll normalize and they'll get some better data, and 3-4 years out it should mature. That's my guess. It's a good question. Go ahead, Rich.
Okay, Mike, as you know, I've grown up with computers, mainframe, network, firewalls, SIMs, cloud, automation, and we could not survive today if we hadn't created machine learning AI to survive.
Yeah.
But
agreed.
it scares the hell out of me, and I just want to compliment you. This is the best AI presentation I've seen.
Oh, thanks, Rich. I appreciate it. It means a lot coming from you, especially. Cool. Other questions? And I'll be hanging out and at the happy hour and everything too. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Hey. Hello. Oh, there we go. My question was, where do you see the future of cybersecurity going with all of this AI implementations? Kind of thinking about the bad guys versus the good guys. If both of them have AI running, machine learning going, all that, like how does that look in the future to you? And is there a human element still involved in that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, there's a near-term and a long-term question there. The long-term is there a human element needed for anything? You know, so there's that question, right, of like thinking more over the decades than over the immediate term. Over the immediate term, there's been a lot of that already. Like there's been multiple DEF CON competitions that, you know, machine participants have been involved in CTFs. There's an interesting trend we could look at. When Deep Blue beat Garry Kasparov at chess, it kind of marked the beginning of an era. What was that? Rich will know, 97, 98, something like that. It was the beginning of a new era where humans were no longer the best at chess. But leagues of chess, one, we still appreciate the art of a human versus human chess game. I mean, you could probably make a killer robot that I couldn't fight. That doesn't mean I don't still enjoy martial arts, if I'd get my butt on the mat and actually practice. No, but similarly, people still play chess. Like humans didn't become irrelevant at that. But there also has been a dawn of human-machine combined chess playing against each other, where the mixture of AI and humans augments things. I think we're going to see something similar where the mixture of human factors and machine factors are going to work together for a long, well into the future. And if you ask futurists like Ray Kurzweil, they imagine that's what it will always be. If you ask futurists and visionaries like Noah Yuval Harari, they more look at will we have a relevance or a purpose? And I think the answer is it's unclear long term. Cool. I think we probably have time for maybe one more question. Yeah, there we go. Or I think they're recording, so you'll still want the mic.
So you talked about the training and the dangers of putting data sets into being captured by LLM. Have you seen any hope with the untraining and any models of, okay, we screwed up. Our corporate office put in data sets, sensitive information into OpenAI, Bard, Claude, whatever. Have you seen any hope that there's ability to untrain models?
It's a good question. So one, I think vendors will come up with policies to deal with it that it's out there. But it's sort of like if you put all your data in an open S3 bucket, you don't necessarily know who accessed it while it was in that state. So you probably still have a data breach in that scenario. Maybe one day access logging of some AI products will be good enough that they could actually show, hey, this trained our model, but you were the only one to ever come up with the prompt to ask for it, therefore you don't have a breach. That's going to be a very data sciences, legal crossover topic, and I'm not quite sure how it's going to play out. But at this point, I don't think there will be access logging to a level that you could say everybody who asked every prompt and authenticate them and what data they were given. I don't think that exists today, at least, in most models. It's a good question. But I'm sure if you upload, Samsung was in the news kind of recently for this. I'm sure Samsung probably did a takedown request to OpenAI. I haven't looked at that aspect, and I'd imagine OpenAI probably made a good faith effort to probably try to comply with that. But how easy is it? I don't know. Do we have time for one more? Okay, go ahead, Frank. Well, we're seeing the market, the free market sometimes dictates a better answer than I could come up with. We're seeing CrowdStrike's announcement of Charlotte. Microsoft is talking a lot about Copilot for security being in beta. I think the race is to, I'm blessed with an amazing SOC that David Richards here in the crowd leads. I'm fortunate, I've never had a time in the last 2 years where I can come in and ask a question and have somebody whip up some SPL and give an answer. But if I took another job tomorrow, I would lose that ability possibly. So I think there's a race to be able to say, hey, how can you get answers out of your data more effectively? And I think that's going to be really empowering. Hey, this vulnerability came out. Be able to ask a system, how many times, where does this vulnerability exist, and get an answer. Be able to ask, hey, how a malware variant attacking my sector is communicating with this IP. Do I have anything across all my solutions, companies, orgs communicating with that IP? Boom, there it is. So I think it's a good question ChatGPT gave you to ask me, Frank, and I think the answer will be that. So thanks everybody. It's been a fun time.